This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 598 for May 17th, 2021. Coming up on today's show, my husband vetoed my partner. That's coming up on today's show. Hello, y'all. I'm your host, Minx, and with me is lustyguy.
Happy and lucky to be here as always.
And in case this is your first time listening, this is a reminder that this is an adult show. We talk about really lascivious things like honesty and communication about sex and relationships. If you are under 18, please do stop listening and visit scarletteen.com. There's some great stuff there, by the way.
There is.
So we are both fully vaccinated now.
Wahoo!
It's like, so we're going to go party like it's, 2020 Q2.
Well,
which is not very much.
We're not going out and running the streets embracing people or anything, but we are scheduling travel.
Yes.
We are traveling like it's 2019 again, right?
Sort of.
Well,
we took a road trip this last weekend.
We're scheduling travel like it's 2019 again. We just got back from the road trip. I leave tomorrow for a dive trip to Mexico. I'm back for 9 days, and then the three of us leave to Hawaii for 3 weeks. We'll be back, for July, 4 months, when we will be going to Europe to go to Croatia. And it's possible we'll be back for 2 months and you and I will go to the Caribbean. So I would say we are, in fact, traveling.
Well, I suppose that's true. I was thinking more about the travel we've actually completed, which is simply to go to your sister's wedding this weekend, where we did generally at the hotel, we wore masks. We ate outdoors in restaurants and wore masks indoors. Generally indoors we wore masks, and generally outdoors we didn't.
That's true. And that'll probably continue being the case. And, honestly, for the most part, COVID considerations aside, I've had a really great time not catching a damn flu or cold or anything in over a year. I might continue the mask business just because it kind of produced good results.
A lot of people are saying that. I think that for travel, I'm probably going to be masking on planes and buses. Like just when there's a big group of people, I'm probably going to be masking for those things. And while I'm not I haven't got a flu in a long time, but I also get my flu shot every year. But I didn't come down with any sort of winter or summer cough or cold. I'm not going to wear it all the time, but there are definitely instances where I'm going to continue masking. Plus, I have all these super cute masks that I want to keep wearing.
Yeah, you can't let them just languish.
It's true. And did you see how cute my matching mask was for the outfit, the sundress I wore to the wedding? I mean, come on.
Yes,
like,
of course I did.
What mask?
Yep. It was cute. Yes.
The other thing I did want to mention in the host chat section that's not just about us, but is actually, in fact, about consensual non-monogamy, is that I happened to get an email, thought I'd throw in a little plug. Dossie and Janet, Dossie Easton and Janet Hardy are doing some navigating consent classes online. They start in mid-June, Saturdays 11 to 2 Pacific. And About Surviving starts June 19th, and About Transgressing starts June 26th. You can find out more at navigating-consent.com, and I'll put that link in the show notes.
And just a little plug here. Every time I've spoken with either of these two, I've learned something, and their writing's fantastic. I'm actually kind of, the actors joke about how many actors does it take to screw in a light bulb, and one to do it and one to say, I could have done better. There aren't that many writers and thinkers in our space that I can say I have a lot of regard for, because I'm a cranky old man, but I have a lot of regard for Dossie and Janet.
Yeah, they are pretty amazing. We got some Poly the News love for parents and moms in particular. So there was an article called Non-Monoga-Moms Next Door. It was in some parenting magazine called Romper. I don't have kids. I don't know parenting magazines. But
I don't either, but I got to say, I love that name.
Romper?
Romper is a great name for a parent magazine.
It is kind of cute. I'm thinking about the article of child's clothing, not the fact that in our household, we refer to sex as a romp.
See, I'm thinking about the old kid show, Romper Room.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Remember that?
No.
Well, that's all right.
But I faked it really well, didn't
You
I?
did. I thought you remembered it. I'll bet you somebody out there does. And when you think about how we use the term romp to mean sex, now Romper Room sounds even better.
It does. See, I thought you were going to make it dirty, but you were like the pure one, and I was the one who was making it dirty.
Well, I went with you.
Anyway, there's this great 4,000-word article with the title, The Non-Monoga-Moms Next Door. It came out about 2 weeks ago, and there's some interesting bits in it. There are some good profiles of some polycules and consensual non-monogamous couples, and actually gave a little hint at some early research that's coming up. I actually took a look at the research and was not all that impressed.
Self-reported studies. Right. Having said that, I will put this. One of the bits of research, rank ordered self-identified levels of contentment with the relationship style. So they were looking at people who had open relationships, people who were swingers, and people who were polyamorous, where the difference being polyamorous people were actively, currently, self-reportedly in love with more than one person. And they were the happiest, and the swingers were at second, and the open relationships came in third. Most of the time when people talk about how this style of relationship means that this is likely to happen, like, for example, kitchen table poly means that you're likely to engage in a lot of chit chat with a lot of people. Most of the time when people say stuff like that, I'm like, not really. It's different every time. You don't really have any stats to back you up. You're just talking about what you think, blah, blah. This time there's an actual study. And if somebody were to say to me, based on this study, swingers have more fun than people in an open relationship, I would have to say, yeah, that's what that study said.
Even though it's self-reported.
Even though it's self-reported.
You hate self-reported studies.
I do, but sometimes it's the best you got, right?
Okay.
There are, as you guys know, thousands of years, literally, of people who've studied politics and human behavior and made a science of it, political science. One of the things that they do is talk about different types of government. One of those types of government that they talk about is fascism. Let's talk about fascism for a second, kids.
Do we have to?
We have to.
Yeah, actually, you're right. We do. We do.
Here's the definition of fascism. A political philosophy, movement, or regime, such as that of the Fascisti from Italy, that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition.
Okay, who does that sound like? Who is that reminding me of? Let me think a minute.
Well, it's reminding me of an entire party right now, which is to say the Republican Party. Let's break it down for a minute. And I'm going to add a little flavor by the way of fascism. If you look at actual fascist states, they almost always include a strong leader that adulation and 100% support is demanded of and for. So right now, here in the U.S., our last president, Trump, literally started his cabinet meetings by having the cabinet members tell him how great he was. Look it up. It's true. There's no regard for the truth. Anyone who actually has the temerity to say that the 2020 election was legitimate, the votes were accurately counted, is driven from the Republican Party. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. People who voted, Republicans who voted for impeachment, Justin Amash comes to mind immediately.
Liz Cheney
is now an independent. We'll see what happens to Liz Cheney.
Well, she was stripped of all her
She's still a Republican.
She's
still
a Republican, but she doesn't have her committee
leadership
responsibilities
Actually,
anymore.
I don't believe she was struck from her committee roles. She was struck from her leadership role. She was the number 3 person in the Republican Party, and that was taken from her.
Got it.
I could be wrong about that. I'd have to do some research to know. Nevertheless, the treatment of Liz Cheney illustrates the point. Every nation, when they flirt with fascism, flirt with a style of fascism that is all their own, even though it has some central components. The Republican Party right now is more than flirting with fascism. The Republican Party is swapping spit with fascism behind the speaker stacks. They are heading towards a grimy mattress in the back of the house while the band plays. It's getting dangerous, folks.
This is a really disgusting analogy.
That's my style. What can I say?
It's true.
They have literally abandoned their platform. The entire Republican Party platform is nothing other than support for Donald Trump. They are requiring adherence to a lie. It's just like a gang intellectually beating you in. You have to abandon what your eyes see for the truth and accept only what the party tells you is true. This is fascism. This is Orwellian. This is an assault on the vague notion of democracy that we have here in the U.S. So what do you do about it? If you live in a state that the Republicans have control of Congress, you engage in active, direct political opposition in a way you never have before. Join organizations, march in the streets. The Republican Party has to be opposed. They are literally making it harder to vote across the nation. They're gerrymandering wherever they can. They are using tools other than gaining the consent of the governed to govern. That's fascism, kids. Rising in the United States right now.
Yeah, haven't there been a good number of restrictive voting laws passed in Republican-led states? So they are trying to keep people from voting, as you say, instead of actually coming up with a platform that people might want to vote for.
Right. And it is a function of our system that they can do that. The Republicans don't have to win a majority to win governance. That's been shown time and time again. And so they become caught in this cycle of increasing extremity as they appeal to their increasingly gerrymandered primary voters, a smaller and smaller section of the population. It's really, really getting dangerous. So I implore all of you, now is the time to be partisan in your opposition to the Republicans as they oppose the very idea of democracy and bring fascism to the U.S. experiment.
If you have questions, comments, or feedback on the politics or any other segment that we cover, please call 802-505-POLY or email polyweekly@gmail.com and attach an MP3 file with your questions or comments. If you'd like to book us with anything that involves a calendar, please email lustyguy@polyweekly.com and copy polyweekly@gmail.com. This week's topic is my hubby vetoed non-threesome sex with my partner. This was a bit of a long letter, so we'll do our best to summarize. Mathias and his partner have been together 13 years, married for just over 3. They've had threesomes. Then Mathias met Markus, dated him independently, and fell for him pretty hard. He did bring Markus home for what he reports was an amazing threesome, even followed with breakfast, so sounds a little kitchen table-y. But he kept dating Markus independently, and one time came home later than expected by about 30 minutes, and the husband vetoed both feelings for and independent sex with Markus. So Mathias and Markus have continued to date and enjoy romantic friendship, but Mathias wants more, so he proposed polyamory in the relationship. They had previously had Wham bam, thank you ma'am, threesomes, but nothing like polyamory. So he writes, I have over the last few weeks thought about how maybe opening up my marriage could look like. I've reluctantly admitted to myself that I do have feelings for this man, Markus, while at the same time still loving my husband. I'm unwilling to throw away 13 plus years, even though the last year was really hard. But at the same time, my husband's ultimatum makes me sick to my stomach. How can I cut someone out of my life like that, even if it hasn't been that long, if what I really want to do is see him more often, all the time, really? I have found myself smiling whenever he texts me, and I see that this feels threatening to my husband, but how could I possibly explain? Does he even understand what he's asking me to do? I think part of him does, but the rest is too busy being scared to care. I have no idea what to do. Feeling like making any choice will leave me suffering one way or another, but I understand his need to force the decision. I proposed maybe trying out poly. The timing was horrible, I'm well aware. But what was I to do in this shitty situation? If only my husband could accept the fact that I don't want to leave him, but I do have feelings for Markus, which don't invalidate my feelings for him, I think I could be really happy. But right now, I'm the most miserable I've ever been in almost 20 years. Thank you for reading. If you got all the way through, I would greatly appreciate any advice you could give me. Kind regards, Mathias. What do you think, Lusty Guy?
First of all, I think, Mathias, that sucks. And I'm sorry.
It's
My
a shitty
heart
situation.
goes out to you. It is a really shitty situation. I'm going to start at my first level, which paraphrases one of my entertainment idols, the fantastic Jane from Firefly, when he said,
I'll be in my bunk?
No, close. I smell a whole lot of if coming off this plan.
Yeah.
So I smell a whole lot of permission model coming off this relationship. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you to step your focus back a little bit from this kind of detailed level of are we poly, are we not, to a more macro level and ask yourself, do you want somebody who's going to consider themselves your father? Do you want somebody who's going to think that they can give you permission? Do you want somebody who you have to ask permission to do things of? I call that the parental model or the authority model of relationships. And in my experience, most adults don't really want that in the Western world. We grew out of it. We got it from our parents. What we want now as adults are partners who can participate in our decisions, whose consideration we hold in high regard. But the only people we want whose permission we need are our own. So when you say you thought you were going to try to transfer, I brought up trying out polyamory. You've always been doing polyamory. Polyamory is a big thing, or at the very least, you've always been doing ethical non-monogamy. You guys have been screwing other people. You've been doing it with knowledge and consent and with everybody participating. It's not like you're leaping from, a closeted monogamous situation into the vast unknown of ethical non-monogamy. You have been playing in these waters for years. You've just been doing it under a particular set of rules of engagement. And now, through the course of experimentation, you've discovered those rules of engagement don't fit so well for you. So instead of presenting this as a huge transformation in your relationship, think of it instead as a mutual renegotiation of the rules of engagement so that you can each be benefited. Right now, your husband is extraordinarily insecure. And using the notion of being your parent, of being able to give you permission, of having authority as a way of avoiding dealing with those insecurities. Now, do I really know that? Have I met the man? Of course not. I could be completely off base here. But in general, from what you've read to us, I'm going to guess that's the case.
I think that's pretty likely.
If so, if you really do want to keep this relationship, your job has to be to provide security at every turn. That doesn't mean kowtowing and accepting authority. That means providing security, demonstrating how much you love your husband and how much you want to keep these 13 years and make things going forward in your actions every day, while also saying you don't want a parental figure. So I don't know your relationship, but spend some time, make your husband their favorite meal, give him an amazing blowjob, tell him that you love him, and then say, I need to renegotiate because this isn't making me happy. And I know you want to make me happy, and it's not making you happy either. And I want to make you happy. So as a partnership, can we renegotiate our rules of engagement to provide security for you and honesty for me? Now, you ask at one point in your letter, does he know what he's asking of me? Probably not. Probably not. No. That's one of the things that you can do in this conversation is be honest and vulnerable. Don't come off like, oh my God, you know what you're asking of me? You know, how dare you? What do you have? No, baby. No, it hurts me when you act like you have authority over me. It makes me feel like you think you can't trust me. It makes me feel like you are afraid that I don't love you. And so you're overcompensating for that. It undermines my affection for you. It doesn't support it. Now we're making progress. Now you're being vulnerable. Now you're opening yourself up. Now you're signaling the kind of conversation you want to have, as opposed to simply saying you're not the boss of me and getting into an authority battle back and forth. So while it's appropriate for you to say, I don't want a father figure and I don't want someone I have to ask permission for, it doesn't have to be a fight when you do it. You can already know that you don't want that, and it's just not going to happen. Now, there's a saying in the world of ethical non-monogamy: those who force the choice lose the choice. That is generally the case. Not always, but generally. So I think you really need to be open and honest with your husband and tell them that. And tell them that you don't want anyone to lose here. You want to work together to build a solution that works for everyone. And you want them to match that with a commitment on their own to build a solution that works for everyone. So really make it a partnership instead of a parental thing. Try to renegotiate out and spend some time getting rid of this whole permission model, because I think that is probably the issue more than poly versus open.
Yeah, that'll
versus
tear you apart.
Exactly.
Nobody likes someone else taking their agency away and telling them what to do. And even if you did go with this either or situation you feel you have right now, you're not going to be happy either way. You wouldn't be happy giving up a 13-year relationship for a new person. You'd probably feel guilty and you'd feel that loss. And then you wouldn't want to give up this wonderful person that you have feelings for to keep a relationship that could lead to resentment, which is why, as lustyguy so wisely said, this is a matter of sitting down, being honest and vulnerable, and having that communication. It's funny, I also picked up on that one line, does he understand what he's asking of me? And this bit of insight, which I thought was very insightful, is that he's too busy being scared to consider. And I think that's really true. I kind of wanted to lean into that a little bit, that you're right. It's really scary if you haven't really thought about consensual non-monogamy in the sense of something other than one-night stands or one-night threesomes and having to deal with fully whole, complex human beings with emotions that you don't have any control over. It is scary. So give that fright a space. Acknowledge that it totally makes sense to be scary. See if you can work on some of those jealousy exercises together, like the and then what exercise. What do you think is going to happen? Like, what are you actually scared of? Let's drill down on that. And what can we do? What can you as a partner do to help allay that fear? And then what can your partner, as his own person, do to help address that insecurity so it doesn't come up at a later date and ruin this or another relationship?
One last note that I will put in here. You keep circling back to not wanting to lose this 13-year relationship. You know, there's lose and then there's lose. And I'm going to ask you this. How old are you? That's how many years the first relationship you have has been going. And if you're not honest with yourself, eventually you're going to lose that one. So persevere on that long relationship and know that if this relationship ends because it's no longer helping to make you guys better versions of yourselves, that's not a failure. It's a success. You ran a 13-year experiment and then it came to its conclusion. That was a great run. You learned a lot from it. You're better off. It's okay. Now, I'm not telling you you're bound for that outcome. I am telling you to stop thinking about that outcome as a terrible loss. It's a transformation that probably, if it does have to come about, you'll be glad it did.
Yeah, it's one of the things that really vexes me, and I've done it myself. When the only reason that you are staying in a relationship is because of a shared history, a long shared history, and there's not much else that you can think of that is beneficial and healthy to you and your partner, then it might be time to transform that relationship into something more like a friendship and take a life lesson from it. But as I always say, you always have the choice to leave any relationship at any time. You can lead 13 years after, a year, a month, a day, 13 minutes, 13 seconds after you meet someone. It is okay. It shouldn't matter how much history you have if it is not contributing to your health and happiness. So Mathias, I hope that helps. I hope one of us or both of us have maybe said something that is helpful to give you some insight to address the situation.
Join the community on Facebook at facebook.com/polyweekly or Twitter at polyweekly or at cunning.minx, Instagram at cunning.minx, or now on TikTok as at cunning.minx.
Instagram at cunning.minx.
Close enough.
Close enough. We got some fun feedback this week. I got a message on Facebook from Chloe, who was from episode 359 on being poly out pregnant and being judged. She wrote, "A few years ago, I was on an episode of Polyweekly about being poly and pregnant and not knowing who the biological father of my daughter was, either my husband or my boyfriend. I wanted to pop in and share with you and catch up. We love that. Thank you." Since then, Chloe writes, "I've had a second child, still don't know the paternity, but my boyfriend stepped out of the picture after causing a ton of stress and drama. I ended things with my husband and was monogamous for a few years. Now I'm single. My kids live with my first husband and I see them regularly. I'm back in the poly community after showing it to my second ex-husband, and he found himself with about 5 girlfriends and had no more time for mine in his relationship." That doesn't happen that often. Usually it's the women that find all the relationships and the men are like, wait, where's all the pussy I was promised? I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, Chloe. She says, "Now I'm moving from Shawnee to Ada, Oklahoma, about an hour away, and it's my first time moving to a new city. I'll be moving in with a poly couple who are very excited to have me join their family. T, the wife, has been super supportive of my being with her husband in a romantic way when I'm ready for that type of relationship. C, the husband and my possible partner, works from home and has been talking with me since September of last year. I've also started a small photography business where I go to events and photograph adults, kids, animals, nature, you name it. My camera has been attached to me since I got it. My question now is," whoa, I thought this was feedback. You're asking a question?
Uh-oh. I guess you didn't read the whole thing very well, huh?
It's okay. I prepped. I have an answer. "Navigating a solo poly lifestyle. How can I keep my independence after I start a relationship? I've been single for a while now, and I gotta admit, I kinda like it. I wouldn't mind committing myself to someone else. I just don't feel comfortable going all in with someone just yet. I like my self-dates and my spa days, and I don't want to get to a point where I don't get those things anymore because I'm focused on my relationship with someone else." Congratulations on your move and your poly progress. Sounds like you're very happy with where you are. My first thought was you should still be able to have self-dates and spa days, even though you're in a relationship with someone else. So hopefully you could still carve time out for that if you wanted to. But taking you seriously in terms of, what do you want in terms of solo poly and how do you retain that independence? It's pretty much up to you. I would recommend the site solopoly.net, which is all the solo poly folks talking and sharing stories and advice and dealing with issues that solo poly folks face. Now, my ready-made advice, which doesn't fit your current situation, is the best way to make sure that you stay solo poly is to live alone, live independently, and not move in with anyone. That makes it a lot easier. If you're going to your own bed in your own house the way you want it, makes it a heck of a lot easier. But that's not helpful at all because you're moving in with a couple.
I love it. She's looking at me like, please help, pick it up.
Make me sound less stupid.
So there were many times growing up when I would go to my grandma and say, Grandma, how do you do this? How do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? What do I do? And 9 times out of 10, she'd look at me, take a drag on her cigarette, and say, you just do it. One day at a time. You just do it. So how do you live a poly lifestyle? You just do it. One day and one decision at a time. Work your way out. Think about your boundaries and what that means to you. And think about it in terms of actual behavior. So like you say, you like your spa days. Excellent. So tell yourself you want to have 2 spa days a month or whatever. I don't know what the number is. You do. Whatever you've been doing. Tell yourself that you want to be able to maintain these actual things that you're going to watch. And if you maintain them, you're maintaining your poly lifestyle or your solo poly lifestyle. And if you don't, you're changing. And then you get to reassess and figure out whether you like those changes. But in the final analysis, like Grandma said so often, how do you do it? You just do it.
It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by friendly polyamorists everywhere.
This week's Happy Poly Moment is from Greg from Instagram, who wrote to say, hey, just wanted to reach out and let you know how helpful your podcast has been. My daughter, who lives in Brooklyn, New York, finally was able to come visit post-COVID. Oh, yay. She came with her 2 partners. We love them all. It was such a tender scene. The lessons we could all learn if we just stopped judging people. Thanks again. Aww.
Thank you very much, Brian, for your recent tip of $4.99. It is much appreciated.
Yeah, Brian joined the polyweekly Playmate, so that's a monthly subscription.
Ka-ching.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to our other polyweekly Playmates for their generous donations this week. And thank you for listening. We do keep this a free resource. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to and continued success with polyamory. And your donations and your listening keep this podcast free for everyone both inside and outside the community. And that being said, that wraps it up for today's show. So thanks for listening, everyone. And remember,
it's not all about the sex.
Okay, I have to ask, was that you or the dog? That wasn't me this time.
Wasn't me.
All right, I'm blaming Baloo. That was a stinky fart.
Do I need to light up this joint?
What?
Do I need to light up this joint to cover the smell?
Need?
Well, I'm trying to be helpful for you.
Well, do it before I start the next segment.
Dog fart covered.